You're watching Capital City Sunday.
Here with me now is Republican Senator Eric Wimberger. Viewers will recall he's one of the co-authors of that PFAS legislation the governor vetoed this past week and a member of the Finance Committee. Senator, welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks for having me again.
Sure. So the governor has vetoed your bill, as he indicated he would. You said on the show last month that one way or another there'll be a meeting of the minds on this issue, that over time the issue will iron out. A couple of quotes from you there. For many communities, time is of the essence. So is it time to compromise with the governor to find a way to get funding to communities and end this deadlock?
Well, I think the way it's going to iron out is over time is that people are going to figure out who's going to be liable for what, and the chips are going to fall in a certain way. SB 312 had two main components. The first was a pathway for grant eligibility that were specific towards PFAS remediation. So things like a treatment facility at the landfill itself is not something that exists as a pathway in existing law. So you create a new kind of grant framework to use that $125 million and other type of monies available as a pathway forward. There are some things you can do related to PFAS, for instance, a well compensation program. There's stuff there. The second part of the SB 312 related to legal protections, and that's something that there's also going to be ultimately a meeting of the minds on. I think, in my opinion, the DNR agrees, and everyone agrees on the analysis I'm putting out, which is that if you own a property that was a farmland at some point in time, you probably own a piece of land now that took biosolids that contained PFAS, and you're going to be declared suddenly an emitter. If you own a current farm and you took biosolids, you're suddenly going to be declared an emitter. If you're in the pollution plume next to an airport, like in the French Island, or in the town of Peshtigo in my district, or anywhere else there's an airport, or any sort of factory or old facility, you're in a pollution plume and you will be an emitter and treated by law currently just like any other type of emitter of a pollutant, even though you are more like a victim of pollution. But the government is going to treat you as a polluter, and it's going to cause a whole lot of problems for regular people who are just in the way, had nothing to do with it.
Sure, and that's that innocent landowner provision. And Senator, how do you know that innocent landowner wouldn't end up being used to shield major manufacturers from taking responsibility for PFAS contamination?
Well, because it specifically writes in there what an innocent landowner is, and it's a person who didn't put it in the ground. So if you just happen to be in the way of this stuff, or happen to own a property that was used for biosolids, there's a specific definition in there as to what an innocent landowner is. The way the DNR would be able to hone in on those point source polluters and kind of distinguish as to who's a quote unquote emitter by no fault of their own and someone who actually put the pollutant in the ground, you can still catch those people very easily, because as a condition of a use on a permit to handle any sort of substance, you're going to be subject to involuntary testing as a result. And plus, all of the other things related to actually depositing a hazardous substance in the ground remained unchanged. So the DNR would certainly have authority to do what they needed to do. And so there's been a whole lot of mischaracterization by the governor, unfortunately, and the innocent landowners are probably going to suffer. If the DNR does not order people into remediation because they're emitting a hazardous substance, then they're still going to have to tell their bank that they own a property that emits. And when you tell a bank that you have a property that emits, that's going to interfere with, obviously, your mortgage eligibility and calling in loans.
Senator, the governor has called the JFC into a special session later on this week. You talk about a meeting of the minds eventually, but again, this is an issue that both sides agree needs to be considered and addressed soon. So are Republicans showing up to this meeting later this week to talk about this funding and ways to move forward and to dissolve this deadlock?
Well, I haven't gotten any notice from the co-chairs yet about any sort of meeting, and that's not my decision to when we really meet on an issue. But it's called a 1310 request that he's put out, and a 1310 request that he's put out for the PFAS, that 125 million, is not a plan. It's a slush fund. He's trying to create a slush fund. He'll just say he wants to spend 30 million on this and 25 million on that, but it's not based on anything. He's just putting that out there as a very skeletal, disconnected kind of a concept with no substance behind it. I think just to give people the impression that he's doing something.
Senator, do you plan to reintroduce the PFAS legislation that the governor vetoed?
I certainly do. Now, if time came to me with language that he was factory with about protecting innocent landowners, you can't put the same exact bill in word for word, but you can change some stuff around, and then it's a different bill. And if he's happy with some language that accomplishes the task I'm looking for, I would certainly put it in the next day. And legislature may or may not meet in kind of a sort of lame duck session after November. We'll see. But I would certainly possible, and then again once the next session happens for sure, because this issue is not going away, and it's certainly critical because people are going to be having those not only serious health concerns, but also those legal concerns that need to be addressed.
And that innocent landowner provision, will that be in the new legislation?
Yeah, I mean, I would put that in there. Yes, I would. I don't plan on budging on that because it's so critical. And how it's worded is not significant to me, just as long as it accomplishes the task. Whatever makes the governor comfortable there.
Well, and you'll put it in there even though Democrats call it a poison pill that killed the bill this
Well, what they're claiming is that the way it's worded allows for point source polluters to somehow use that section. If that's what they believe, then I'm open to them wording it how they want. Just make it accomplish that particular task of innocent landowners. Even the governor has said at least once publicly that he doesn't want to hold innocent landowners liable. Well, give me some language to put in the bill. I'll do exactly that then. But he has never provided any sort of language to do that task, and no Democrat has provided me language to do that task. So I drafted what I thought did that task. They somehow think it's a different. It doesn't do that, but if they want to make suggestions, I'm certainly open to it as long as it accomplishes that.
Senator Eric Wimberger, thanks so much for joining the show this morning.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump both visited our state this month. We'll talk with a political expert about what that shows about the campaigns and the voters they'll need to court in order to win Wisconsin in November.